purebred river hog. They definitely really like rivers and the wet places, so Florida's a great option for them. So over here we have Rio getting a good scratch on the fence. He is our male, and then right here we have our female Ruby. So the males tend to be a bit bigger, and then you can also see he has those two really big bony projections on the front of his face. He can use those for defense, or if he were fighting with other males. Ruby! So these two have been here for about 5 years. They both just came from separate facilities. We'll kind of talk about that as we go along the way, see how we acquired different animals and things like that. But every story is different. These two just came here to be a breeding pair. And for about 5 years, we didn't really have much success from them. But this year, they've been doing a great job. Last September, she had her first litter. She just had 2 babies. And then back in March, Tabitha, who is our golden tabby here. And then over across the way, we have Tank, who is our white tiger over here. So these guys, they are, again, like I said, both still very young. Tabitha will be turning 2 in February, and Tank turned 1 back in June. So these guys still have a lot of growing to do. These guys are our only tigers here that we do know what subspecies they are. So there are 6 different subspecies of tiger. They are all genetically different. They are all very distinct. They look different. They are different sizes, things like that. So these guys, because they do have these pretty colors, we do know that these guys are Bengal Tigers. So the Bengal Tigers are the 2nd largest species of tiger subspecies. So these guys will be getting quite a bit bigger. We are expecting them to about double in size. So they are still going to be doing a lot of growing. But that being said, they have grown a lot since they came. So last October, Tank, when he arrived, the white guy over there, Tinker, come on, bud. Come on. Tabby's like, I will. When Tank arrived, he was about this big, and I'm very surprised. Typically, he's not the most motivated guy, so it sounds like he's particularly hungry today. All right, Sammer buddy. Surprisingly gentle, was not expecting that. Good job. And then over here we have Leah, our female, who is probably one of our most food-motivated animals. This girl can eat for days. She's quite the eater. Come on up, lady. So what these guys are getting now is chicken. It's always raw. This is Tyson chicken, so it's the same stuff you guys get at the store. We just get it several thousand pounds at a time. So these guys are getting leg quarters right now. Sammy! Cranky today, huh? So like I said, it's always raw. Just like we can get sick eating raw chicken, these guys can get sick eating cooked chicken. So it's always really important that we always also have it very fresh. You guys can eat it. Right now we do have the skin on our chicken, so we are trying to focus. And so he was being kept as a young lion with 2 big adult males. And those big males, since they are the ones in the pride that basically call the shots, they're the bosses and they tell everybody where to go and what to do. So as a young cub, he was being basically just pushed around by these 2 big adults. And so because of that, he didn't really get the chance to kind of move around and exercise the way he needed to. He was just kind of pushed into the corner and kept there by the 2 adult males. So unfortunately, he does have some poor developed muscles in his back leg, so that is why he does kind of wobble a little bit. But he doesn't really let it slow him down, especially when it's cold. He gets really frisky. He sometimes will be just running around. And so sometimes in the mornings I'll come out here and he's just going to relax when it's cold. So he does, it doesn't really let him slow him down. So back here you might also see one of our hyenas running around. So we do have a pair back there. We have Shenzi and Eddie. And those 2 are the parents of Peanut. So if you guys have seen Peanut all over our Facebook and Instagram, those are his parents. Get Sammer here. All right, buddy. So like I was saying, he is a rescue. Leah over here, she was here first. She was here with an older male. And when that male did pass, we did know that we needed to get a partner for her, a buddy. So that's when Sammer came. And so Sammer came to be a mate for her. And with lions, it is absolutely critical that they are kept with another cat. Like I was saying with the tigers, they're typically solitary and they don't have others that they live with. But with lions, it's absolutely critical to their care and their mental and emotional well-being that they have to have another cat. Keeping a lion by themselves is not good because they are very, very social. They're the only cats that'll form very permanent social bonds out in the wild. So it's very important that they have another. So it's these two are definitely very connected. They do spend a lot of their time snuggled up together. They kind of follow each other around. They definitely stick together as a pride. And in the mornings, like I was saying, when we separate them all to feed them their own diets, they definitely, by the time they're finished, they're ready to be back together, and they're waiting kind of over here by the door ready to be together. So they're definitely a good bonded pair. But because of his hips, we think that that's one of the reasons why we haven't had any breeding success from these two. We would absolutely love for that to happen, but we think that he can't quite hit the spot with his
Mm-hmm. Jaguars.
Makes all these really happy noises. She kind of wags her tail. I feed her every single day, and if I tried to pet her, she would take my fingers right off. So it just kind of goes to show you how very, very different it can be. And he came here to be a mate for our female. Over here we have our two cougars, pumas, mountain lion, catamount. It's all the same thing. The Florida panther is a subspecies of cougar. But Cujo here came to be a mate for our female that we've had for a number of years. We are very happy to have him. I love him to death, like I said. But when he came, again, he was not intended to be a rescue, but it was very clear right off the bat that he was not being well taken care of. I'm not sure if you guys can still quite tell because he's looking very good. He's watching the animal. He's like, what is that? But when he did arrive, he was something that I would call probably close to being morbidly obese. He was very, very, very overweight when he first arrived. Luckily, he is making some good steps in the right direction. He's been exercising a lot, like you saw. He does love to kind of chase us and run with us. And we kind of think that he was probably just not being well taken care of. Being that overweight is a sign of neglect, so it's likely that he just wasn't getting a good diet, and he likely wasn't getting enough space to move around and exercise. So he has been getting those good things now. One of the other interesting things was that even though he was overweight when he did arrive, he had no interest in our food when we were kind of getting to eat. So he did not have any interest in our fresh chicken, fresh red meat, things like that. He did not want anything to do with it. So we had to contact the place that had previously owned him. And Christine, our co-founder, she messaged them 3 separate times asking what they were feeding him, and they would not tell us. So that's not the best sign. So it is, again, one of those things we're happy to have him because we're not exactly sure that he was really being kept in the best hands. So we're very happy to have him here. But for the time being, we are having some interesting things going on over here, trying to get him to meet his lovely lady. So this is another species that is very solitary. So introducing solitary species, even if it is a male and a female, it can be very problematic, can be very, very dangerous. So we do have to take our time with it. Like I said, he's been here for 6 months and they still haven't fully been introduced into the same enclosure yet. But they kind of alternate days, whether sometimes he gets to visit over in her enclosure and I'll put her into her lockout. And other days I'll bring her over here into his lockout, just so that they're kind of moving their scents around, they can see each other. They can do what is called howdies. So that's when they can interact through just a single fence like this. So they can basically see each other, smell each other, they can interact through the fence, but they're not going to be able to hurt each other, which is very important. So these guys are kind of in that howdy process, slowly getting to know each other. Every day is a little bit different. So Joe, currently I think is my problem child with that. Dakota is getting to the point where she's kind of interested in him and kind of curious. At first she was very angry. She was like, this is my place, what are you doing here? But now she's getting to the point where she'll go up to him kind of trying to interact with him. And then he typically gets a little bit more snarly, which causes her then to be snarly. So I'm waiting on him to just be patient and friendly with her. So slowly but surely, someday hopefully these guys will be fully introduced and they can have offspring. But that's a plan for the future. So we'll go around and see if we can't see Dakota on the other side, over on her side of the enclosure. He'll probably follow us around. Rudy!
Mm-hmm.
What's your phone code?
Oh, birthday.
7491?
Yep.
0704.
Nope.
Picking that thing up.
7491.
Mm-hmm.
He's following that thing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't like how it moves.
Mm-hmm.
Our only animal that does receive external funding from the state. So she does still receive some funding for her care from Massachusetts. She is our only one that does that. For the rest of all of our animals, we are solely in charge of them and we do all of everything. So again, thank you guys for being here because we are a nonprofit and we do have to take care of these animals ourselves. So it does mean quite a bit.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Clearly, you're very knowledgeable. What is your background? Because you're involved with a lot of the their care.
Yes. So I got my degree here at UF in wildlife ecology and conservation, and then while I was doing that, I did several unpaid internships because this is one of those fields that does a lot of that, and you can't get a job unless you know what you're doing. So you have to do the experience. So I did several unpaid internships down in South Florida. And I was volunteering here on the weekends while I was doing school. And so then when I graduated, Christine, she contacted me. She was like, hey, do you want a job? You've been here for about 2 years. So so now I've been here as staff like a year and a half, and I was volunteer for about 2 years before that. So it's...
And is this place, is it run by a lot of volunteers?
We do have volunteers that come in for about like 4 hours every weekday. But for the most part, we have about 5 staff, and we do quite a lot.
Yeah, that sounds like
So
a
definitely
lot.
it's a busy life. And again, all the animals, they need care every day. So even Christmas Day, we gotta work, gotta make sure that they're all taken care of. So we're all here 6 days a week.
Okay.
Well, how long does a bobcat live?
Typically the smaller cats, they live a little bit longer than the big guys. These guys could live into mid to late 20s. So she could definitely still have a couple more years. She's probably about like 16, 17, we think. So it's one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of...
How long did they have her as a pet?
I'm not entirely sure how old she was when she came, but I think she was like between 3 and 4. With a lot of the rescues, we don't really know too much about their histories. So yeah, unfortunately, that's one of those things where you never really know. And even with some of the animals that we don't know, for instance, Cujo didn't come as a rescue, but we were told he was about 5 years old. But again, sometimes people will say that just so that people are interested in them. They'll kind of try and sell them as younger than they are. news. Our animals are still fairly reactive to them.
Yeah, that one was watching me really hard.
Oh
He's
yeah, he was
following me.
locked in. So that was Cujo, our male, and over here we have Dakota, our female, and this is a little bit more what they should look like, so you can kind of see how chunky and big he really is. So Dakota here, she's going to be turning 5 soon, and she has been here since she was a little tiny baby. And again, she is one of those animals that was raised by Barry, basically, so she and he have a very special tight bond. What you doing, Cody? What? She came up. She just walked back just now. She's watching the rideables. But like I said, she is in the process of being introduced with Cujo, so they do spend a lot of time kind of next to each other, making sure that they are interacting safely and carefully. But that's one of our things that we are definitely really working towards with these guys. So the Pumas, Cougars, they are considered to be small cats. So the big cats are defined not by weight, not by size, but rather their ability to purr. So the small cats, like these guys, they can purr, whereas the big cats, they cannot. So it all comes down to their hyoid bone, which is the same bone that we have right here. It's your Adam's apple. So with the big cats, it is ossified, so it is bone. It gives them the ability to roar. They can roar very loudly, but they cannot purr. And in the small cats, it's not as ossified. It's a little bit more cartilaginous, so it's more flexible and it allows them to purr. So these guys, even though they are pretty large, they are considered to be small cats because they do make that happy purring noise. But as you can see, even between her and Cujo, we do think of these cats as sometimes being a little bit more plain. They're just brown, but they do have a lot of different color variations. Dakota here, she's a bit more brown, a little more chocolatey. Cujo, I think he's a little bit more of a caramel color. But I've seen them even like almost like a light gray, sometimes like a very pale tan. They do have some different color varieties. So Dakota here, like I said, she came when she was still very young, so she has that bond with Barry. But she came to us from Texas. That's one of my favorites. That is a hyena, and that is called a whoop. And we'll talk about that when we get to them, but just wanted to point that out up here.
Would she let you do that to her?
She's very sweet. She likes people quite a bit. But she did come from Texas. And so another cool thing about the Texas Panthers, the Texas Pumas, is that they actually are the ones that saved the Florida Panthers. I don't know if you guys know the history of the Florida Panthers. But back in the 90s, when I was just a wee little tot, they were down into like the 80s. There really weren't very many of them. There was about 80 or so Florida Panthers left down in South Florida. And so they started to see lots of really bad signs of deformities, things like genetic issues that were starting to form because there was such a small population. So there was some inbreeding happening. They had things like spinal kinks in their tails, different cowlicks on their ear or on their fur. Males were having difficulty with breeding. They weren't fully being formed in the ways that they should be. And so they introduced about 7 Pumas over from Texas because they are very closely related to the Florida Panther. And they brought the 7 females down into the Florida Everglades and they released them.
Mm-hmm.
And only because the owner has.
Tiger.
She's like, no, I want the rideable. Gabby.
Austin, how you get camera?
She's like, nope. But that little noise that she made is a very important tiger noise. So like I was saying, the big cat cages. And so because of that, she does have some leftover kind of sort of PTSD, as you could say. She really does not like small spaces. She also doesn't like motorized equipment, so I'm assuming she was being kind of towed in that enclosure or in that cage. So she definitely has some leftover resentment from that. But because of that, she is one of our only cats that doesn't crate load. So she definitely has, she lets you spend a lot of time in a small space, so she doesn't go into crates. She does not like them. And so because of that, if there was ever an emergency, like a health issue or like a big hurricane coming, we would have to dart her, unfortunately, which is something we do try to not do with any of our animals. All of the rest of our animals, we can get them to load into a crate, but she does not because of her past. And so, unfortunately, we would have to dart her. And like I said, these animals are very smart. We try not to do that because they are smart. They know what's happening. They know that you, this person that they have bonded to, that they trust, is now shooting them, and it's very traumatic. So we try at all costs to not do that. But with her and the way she was kept in the past, it's kind of unfortunately one of those things that we would have to do. She's so interested in that rideable. She's like, what the heck? Gabby! So she is one of our oldest. She's going to be about 14 this year. And even so, I would say she's probably one of our most active. She's probably even more active than our kids over there. Now you want it. And so she gets the name Gabby because she is very talkative. She does those little kind of Wookiee noises and a lot of chuffs. Good job. All right, there we go. Now she's comfortable enough with the rideable.
Is that a ball? Is that a ball?
Yes,
that
yes.
rolls?
And as you can tell, it is very scratched up, very well loved. Like I said, she's very active, so she does play quite a bit. She's really good at just like destroying everything. This little small block tube over here, not the long one, but the short one, that is her favorite. And you can always tell when she's playing and having a good time because she will just like run around and like smack that into the fence. So it makes like the loudest noise, so you can always tell from wherever you are if she's having a good time. But
Does she eat pumpkin?
they don't eat it, but they do play with it. They love pumpkins. They'll run around with them. She is kind of strange with her pumpkins. She will get so excited when she first gets them, and so she'll run and grab them, and she'll kind of like do a lap around like holding it. She can pick up a pumpkin in her mouth. She'll pick up the whole thing in her mouth, and she'll run around, and then she chucks it into her pool back there, and then she doesn't touch it. And then it'll sit there for like 2 days, and she'll leave it. Like she gets like 30 seconds of pure joy, and then she leaves it, which is really weird because the rest of ours have so much fun for days. They'll like just destroy them. You can give them a new pumpkin, and they'll destroy it. And you give them a new one, and they'll destroy it. She just kind of puts them in her pool and stores them. All right, Gabby. We'll come over here and see our tiny mother over here.
It's not like those things. That's a leopard.
Dang.
She found a good sunshine spot. So over here we have two of our spotted hyenas. Like I said, we have two subspecies of hyena, or two species of hyena here. We have the striped and the spotted. So over here we have Waylon and Patsy. They are two of our spotted. Typically, spotted hyenas are very, very social. They can live in groups in the wild up to 100. So they definitely tend to have they definitely do like to have buddies. But with these guys, we do have all of ours here in pairs. And in captivity, we found that that's just what works best for them. Here she comes. Hi, lady. And that is because these guys have very strict hierarchies, and they're very, very powerful animals. So if we were to have a bunch of hyenas all together, it would kind of create some issues. So out in the wild, you're going to have individuals that are a little bit more powerful, a little more healthy, a little more strong than others. But then you have captivity where they are all at their peak. They're all getting well fed. They're all getting the veterinary care that they need. So then sometimes the hierarchy and the competition become a little extra strict and a little bit more dangerous. So that's why we do keep all of ours in pairs. Patsy here is our lovely lady. The spotted hyenas are very strange animals, very unique. These guys, typically the females are going to be larger than the males. And every single one of our pairs, our females are larger. But what's also very interesting about these guys, ooh, I don't have any kids on this tour. I can say things. Cool. Okay, cool. Well, oh, no, darn. Okay. Well, what's very interesting about these hyenas is that the females do look identical to the males. So if you are looking at the underside of a hyena, they look exactly the same. So it can be very difficult to tell whether you're looking at a male or a female because the females do basically have the same bits. So with our 2 cubs that were born here this year, we have Peanut and Huey. We had to wait a couple months before we knew whether they were male or female because it does look the same, and we had to send blood off for genetic testing to be able to tell if it's a boy or a girl. So it can be very tricky, and that's just one of those things that scientists think that they developed because in these clans, every single female ranks higher than every single male, and they think that even though the females are bigger, having that extra bit there might make them look a little bit tougher, scarier, who knows. It's just one of those things that these guys have developed. And now that we've lost them, we can head on, but we'll have more hyenas later on. So we got to hear a little bit of the whooping earlier, which is my favorite hyena noise. Or you can be back. Patsy! Waylon! Okay, Waylon's coming out. Okay. So these guys are definitely more well known for their laughing. So they are definitely called the laughing hyena. That's typically not the best sound to hear. It's a very high energy noise. And we might hear it soon. Typically you hear that when it's feeding time and they get really excited, or if they start to roughhouse, which they might, and so we might get to hear some laughing. There it is. So typically when we hear that noise, we're kind of like, what's going on? But the whoop, which we heard earlier, is their long distance call. It's a long distance vocalization that they use to kind of communicate to others in their clan. So if they're spread out and they're hunting, if they find something big and strong that they want to eat, they will whoop to call in back up, and so that's just their way of calling the others. So it's their loud long distance call. And so like I said, we have all of ours here in pairs, and so they're kind of spread out throughout the facility. We had the 2 that were behind the lions. We have these 2 here. We have 2 that live up by our building, and then 2 that live way back behind our Rhino. And so with that long distance whooping, sometimes it's really cool because they will kind of whoop and talk to each other throughout the facility, and it's really cool to kind of hear them all responding and talking to each other. They're very, very smart animals, and we kind of joke that if these guys had opposable thumbs, we'd be in big trouble.
Why do their legs appear shorter in the back than the front?
Because they are. So these guys, that is for a very important reason. So they have the longer legs in the front and the shorter legs in the back. And that is a very good advantage for these guys. Like I said, they are not afraid of anything. And so that means these guys will eat lions, they will eat buffalo, they will try and hunt elephants, giraffes, anything. They are not scared. So having those tall front legs in the front gives them the advantage of running backwards very quickly. So they can run in, try and take a bite of that lion, try and take a bite of that buffalo, and then run back very quickly before it has a chance to kind of retaliate. So it gives them the ability to go in and out really, really fast, kind of keeps them a little bit safer. But it's really funny kind of to watch our youngsters as they've been kind of getting used to their legs because they kind of move in every direction all at once. So it's definitely really funny to kind of watch them move around because they do have that very strange build. So we'll get to see some more hyenas along the way, but we got to stop and see these guys. So we'll head.
Do I have to hold it?
No.
So here is our one adult male that we have, so he is our largest. And that could be because he is male. Typically the boys are getting bigger than the girls. But also, he could be, again, down to the subspecies that he is. We don't really know. He could be a mix. We think that, I think, he probably weighs between like 450 and 500 pounds. So he is quite a big guy. But the largest subspecies of tiger is the Amur or the Siberian, and they can be up to 700 pounds. So he is definitely not the biggest. They do get bigger than him. But that being said, this guy is ready for a snack. He's another one of our garbage disposals. He can eat forever and ever and never get full. You ready, big guy? So he loves a good snack. He's very, very ready.
1, 2.
So that's just a really good way to show you guys how big these guys really are. And like I said, he is not the biggest that lives out there. But he does love his food for very, very good reason. Like I said, he is one of our rescued cats. And so he came to us from a photo cub facility like they kind of show in Tiger King, where they're breeding lots of cubs. And so people can pay and interact with these cubs. But there's kind of not the best keeping ideal. Unfortunately, there are a lot of issues that come with this. So legally, they can only have the public interact with these cubs if they are under 40 pounds. But as you know, baby animals grow up, they get bigger. And so once they do reach that weight limit, they can no longer be used. So they're no longer useful, they're no longer making money for these people. So they will oftentimes abandon them, euthanize them. They'll have to find new homes for them, things like that, because it does cost a lot of money to take care of a big adult tiger. So a lot of those facilities don't want them once they're big. Unfortunately with Gator, in his case, he was actually being given from a distance. Alright, so here we have the lovely Miss Sunflower. And she is very excited. And again, that noise is called a chuff. And that's their very happy, almost purr-like noise. There you go, good girl. So Sunflower here is our dainty little princess that typically does not even get leg quarters because she needs them to be chopped up into thighs and drumsticks because she's a dainty little lady and only eats little pieces. But the shipment that we got of chicken lately has been a little smaller, but that just goes to show you everybody's a little different. They all are unique. They all have their different preferences, and she won't eat it if you give her the whole leg. She has to have it in little bite sizes. But Flower here, we know just about nothing about her. She was unfortunately just abandoned on the doorstep of a vet's office.
Wow.
They left a note that said that she had seizures and she needed to be euthanized. Luckily, the vet kind of kept her for observation and they didn't notice any health issues. So we were very, very happy that they did actually put the time and effort into making sure she was healthy. And as far as I know, as long as she's been here, she's never had a seizure. So she is very healthy. However, she does have very crossed eyes. They are very, very crossed, so that is pretty much a dead giveaway that she is a little bit inbred. Gator has very far set eyes as well, so his eyes do kind of start to show signs that he was likely inbred as well. So they probably didn't come from the best places that were really responsibly breeding tigers. So we actually think that might be one of the reasons why she was given up. She does seem to have some vision issues because of that. She's very sensitive to shadows, very sensitive to movement. There's one day I felt so bad because we had a lot of rain, so there were puddles on her platform. And when she was looking down at it, I think it just really confused her and she couldn't tell what was going on. So she had to take her time getting down that day. But she definitely does seem to have some very interesting vision issues because of that. So we think maybe she was being trained to be a circus tiger. She does have a couple like weird, quirky things that she does that don't seem quite natural and like they would have been trained. And then potentially having the vision issues would have made her more dangerous and difficult to work with. So we think that that's probably why she was given up. But we are very happy to have her. She's a lovely little lady. As you can tell, she's given us lots of chuffs and talking with us. But she has a great disposition. She always wants to be involved. She always wants to be right up next to us and what's going on. Good girl. Alrighty, and we'll come see these hyenas since they are out and ready to see us.
Nope.
Attack, nice. He's a rhino. He doesn't have a horn. He has antlers.
Move up close.
I'm good.
Wow.
So over here we do have our
Yeah, there you
Rhino.
go.
This here is Henry. He's a very special man. But I will say we do have the opportunity to feed if you guys are interested, but we do ask for a $5 donation if you are able. And I can also take card later if you are interested at the gift shop. But you are able to feed him if you would like to. So Henry here, he is what we call an Indian rhino or a greater one-horned rhino. These guys are from India. And he does underneath here have just one singular horn. So that is very typical for these guys. Henry is a very special guy, as I was saying. He is actually the world's oldest male Indian rhino. So he is an old gramps. We had to kind of run over here when we saw that he was up because like most of the old guys out there in the world, once he goes down for his nap, there's no getting Grandpa back up. So when we do see that he is up and ready for the tour, then we do kind of have to hustle over here and get him a snack before he gets too impatient and goes to take a nap. So this guy just turned 39 this year, which
Very nice.
is a ripe old age for an Indian rhino. The oldest ever lived to be about 43. So he could potentially still have a number of years on him. But for now, he is, like I said, the world's oldest male. There's a female over in Sudan who is, I think, just a couple months older than him. So we're very close. He's almost neck and neck with her. So we will see. Good boy, Henry. So Henry, in addition to being just very, very old, he's done quite a number of beautiful things in his life. While he was traveling around the States, being a very good boy, meeting lots of interesting people. He was also meeting lots of beautiful ladies. And this guy right here, he fathered over 30 offspring. So he has really done his part to help his species. He has over a dozen grandkids and a couple great grands out there as well. But that's one of the reasons why they knew it was time for him to retire. So he originally was born in India, and he came over to the States for that purpose of joining those breeding programs. And so first he went to San Diego and he was at their wildlife park. And then he went to Dallas-Fort Worth in Texas, and then to Tanganyika and Kansas. So like I said, he's been all over the place meeting all those ladies. But in captivity, you don't necessarily want there to be too many related individuals, especially in a species like this that is endangered and threatened. So that's kind of when they knew it was time for him to retire. This is a solitary species, so I'm sure he's quite glad to be out here enjoying his alone time, getting some TLC over here. So we actually were one of 13 facilities competing to be his retirement home. So we had to have this whole enclosure set up and ready to go before they would even consider us. So we were very happy that they did say yes, because otherwise we'd have a very empty paddock over here. So this was a great spot for him because, again, he was coming from Kansas. These guys being from India, they do like where it's hot and muggy and wet. So Florida is a pretty good substitute. We also have on the other side of that wooden fence, he has a natural mud wallow where there's like a natural pool there, and he can go down and hang out in the water. That's a really cool feature that he has over here, and he loves it. Trying to get him out of his pool is almost impossible. The key trick for Henry is watermelon. Watermelon is his true motivator. He will do just about anything for some watermelon. He also always has access to his barn, so he's kind of got the best of all worlds over here. And again, being a solitary species, he does have good alone time here. He doesn't have to worry about too many others, especially since he did have such a social younger life. So he has kind of the best of all worlds. But again, being old, he's definitely been an interesting fellow for us. So this here is just his tour treat. He's got some carrots, some sweet potatoes, some apples. But on a daily basis, he gets a lot of hay. And like I said, he loves his watermelon. And he gets about 20 pounds of grain that is specially made for elephants and wild herbivores. So it's specially made by some really awesome companies that are out there that are specially developing all these foods for these exotic animals to help make sure that they are getting all the nutrients and nutrition that they do need. So that's one of those really awesome things that he is getting. But also being an old guy, he gets a lovely vitamin supplement to help with his arthritis.
Thanks.
Whoa, don't knock that off. Was that supposed to stay? It won't stay on. He's knocking it off. But Henry actually gave us a very interesting scare a couple weeks ago. We came out here and his horn was gone. We were like, ready to go. So being an old guy, as old as he is, he was starting to wear it down. These guys do naturally file their horns in the wild. He showed that he was definitely not interested in any of our ladies. He was a little aggressive. So instead instead, he just gets to have this nice, lovely bachelor pad over here, which is pretty normal for these guys. They are very solitary animals. Typically, the only times you'll see them living together is when they have cubs or young brothers while they're growing up. They will form what is called a coalition, and so they will kind of stick together in their younger years while they're learning how to hunt, learning how to protect their territory, things like that. So while they are growing up, typically you'll sometimes see brothers stick together. Other than that, these guys are usually fairly solitary, and so having his own little bachelor pad over here is typically what you would see. So when we do go see our cheetahs later, you'll kind of see that they are all kind of spread out, and that is because they are very solitary cats. So these guys, even though he might look kind of large to you guys, this is another one of those species that is considered to be a small cat. We will probably get to hear some of his purring because this guy has quite the motor. He's quite a loud purrer. But as you can see right there, we have a very, very good view of his feet. And you can see that he has his claws out, those very, very sharp, long, white claws. So cheetahs do lack the ability to fully retract their claws like our house cats at home. So these guys cannot do that. Their claws are always out. But that is a very good adaptation that they do have to help them with their speed.
So they definitely would tear up your furniture?
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that later too. This guy knows. So these guys, they do have those long claws to help them with their speed. It helps them, it's just like wearing cleats. They can kind of grab the ground and run really, really quickly. It helps them just really get a good grip as they are running. Another cool adaptation that they have is if you look at his tail, you'll notice, he's like, what is that hat? We're trying to be festive, okay?
There he is. There he is.
He's like, I don't know about that. But another cool adaptation that they do have is that very long and interesting tail. These guys, their tails are actually kind of flattened on two sides to help them use it like a paddle. So when they are running, twisting, turning, trying to make really quick turns to chase after gazelle or antelope, they can use that tail like a rudder to help them steer. Gotta go on and see. That is interested in that hat. Yeah, like I said, if he goes lay down, there's no getting him back on.
He won't
You guys
get
throw the
up.
tennis ball for him?
For Matt, no. In his he is our oldest cat here actually, so he is 17. And so he's typically kind of getting towards people's behind, but we always try to get our kids to eat their veggies. They tend to not be the biggest fan. Nini! Yeah, these guys are a little bit older, so she's a little bit of an older lady. Alright, so we'll head back this way and see if we can find our next cat. Oh, nope, she's right out front ready.
I'm glad we got to do that.
Very upscale. Oh. Yeah, very interested in the Rhino. So over here we have our Jaguar enclosures. Right here we have Abigail, who is our female. We've been wanting for a very, very long time to be part of a breeding program with these guys to help with their conservation. So for a very long time we've been looking for a male for her, and that could be a great mate for them. So we very recently, just a couple months ago, did acquire a male. But right now he is still very, very young, very, very small. So right now he is living up closer to our building. And later on, once he gets bigger and stronger and he won't be so scared of this lady, he will get to move over and meet her. But right now, we're just letting him grow up, get used to being here, getting used to us, our routines, things like that. And then once he's older, bigger, and a little more confident, he'll come move over here and meet Miss Abigail. So the Jaguars, we do typically think of these guys as being in Central and South America, down in the Amazon. And that is where they are found. But they've also historically ranged up into the U.S. So we did have them in Texas and New Mexico, places like that. And occasionally nowadays we still do get some stragglers over the border, but for the most part these guys have been extirpated, which means that they are now extinct in a portion of their range. So these guys are no longer really in the States.
Nope.
I don't want to have to clean that. Come on. Look at me, Abby.
But we would love to be a part of a breeding program that would help to reintroduce
There you
them.
go. Nope.
There you go. There you go.
Let's see. Come on, lady. There we go. So we have really, like I said, we have always really wanted to get a mate for her because we wanted to help with the reintroduction of the Jaguars. So hopefully we will have some good success with her and our new male. Boomerang, who is our new male, he is actually what we would call a melanistic Jaguar, so he is all black. And so earlier we got to see the white tiger and the golden tabby. Both of those guys, they have very, very recessive traits. Those colors are very, very, very recessive. But the black Jaguar is actually considered to be a dominant trait genetically. So it's actually, scientists are finding that out in the wild, in the jungles, the black Jaguars have a higher fitness and they do have a higher survival rate because their black coat lets them blend in with the shadows of the jungle. So it'll be really exciting to see once she and Boomerang are introduced, and hopefully they'll have some good offspring and we can help with their conservation. That's definitely one of those things we've been wanting to work on for years. So we're really excited to be making some forward progress with that. But Abigail here, she is a lovely lady. She is a Jaguar. These guys are considered to be big cats. And the Jaguars, as you can see, have quite different spots from the Cheetahs. So the Cheetahs that we just saw, he has kind of what we call polka dot spots. He's got just those little dots. The Jaguars have what we call rosettes, so it's that open spot pattern. The difference between a Jaguar and a leopard is that the Jaguars, in their rosettes, they will have a little spot to make it look like a bullseye. She has a couple on closer to the center of her back, where you can see there's a little dot in the middle of her rosette. That is a very clear sign of a Jaguar. Leopards do not have that. And another thing that I will say about a Jaguar that you probably shouldn't say about your friends is that she has a very big head. That is typical for Jaguars. These guys have very strong, powerful jaws. They can crush turtle shells, break bones, things like that. These guys have very strong jaws, which give them very rounded, cute little faces that are very flat on top. So these guys have those big heads, and they're really, really built for strength. Like if you look at her forearms, you can see how very strong and muscular and round they are. These cats are definitely built like tanks. They're built to be very strong and powerful. Whereas our leopard, when we'll go see her, you'll notice she has a much smaller face, much more dainty frame, and they have a much longer tail because they are built for life in the trees, whereas these guys are built for life down on the ground hunting. They're very, very strong, very, very powerful cats. They also love water, just like tigers. These guys are great swimmers. And they will hunt in the water and on land. They are very, very capable hunters. So we will go and hopefully see our leopard next. Learned that she could pull the tube all the way out and then lift up the door, and she was good to go again. So she's very clever. We've now developed a system where we attach little clips to the end of the tube so we can clip it to the fence. So now it's a little more secure. And that's been working for a couple months. We'll see. I'm sure that in a couple months we'll need a new tactic, but for now it's good. But they're just very, very smart. And like I was talking about earlier about lions, we do have individual diets for each of our animals, so we like to make sure they are each getting their own prepared diet. So we just separate them when we feed them. Grace here, however, has decided that it is very important that she looks after Freddie. So she will oftentimes take little parts of her diet, whether it's a frozen thawed chick or a mouse or an egg, and she will hide it. So she'll hide it, and then as soon as we go over and we open the door for her, she'll run, grab it from her hiding spot, and take it over to Freddie, and she'll just drop it right at his feet. So it's very cute. They're just very, very smart little animals. One of those things you kind of just don't expect them to be really, really just thinking, but they are. They're very smart little guys. Oh, Fredster! Fredster! In old Terriers, they do have that white patch on their chest. That can be a very good identifying marker for these guys. For researchers, they can kind of identify them all by the shape of that white patch. So it's going to be a little different on every single one.
There we go.
Oh, is somebody else? Yep. Oh, where?
Oh, I see him.
Oh, perfect! I looked earlier and I couldn't find any of them. So that's one of our Joffrey's cats. Right over there, it's a very tiny little cat. Looks kind of similar to a house cat. That right there is Jasmine, I do believe. I can't tell from all the way over here. I do believe that is our male. These guys are found in South America as well. They are actually the most common cat over there. They are doing quite well. A lot of the other cats down in South America aren't doing quite as well as the Joff. But the Joffs are doing quite well. They've got a good sized population. Where's he going? Jess! So these guys are also not the smallest species of cat. They do typically max out at about 3 pounds. This young man, when we took him to the vet, he weighed 4, so he is a bit of a chunky man. But he does have a mate who lives on the other side. Her name is Zara. And so she is honestly about the same size as this photo. It's a very good accurate depiction of how big these guys are. Just very, very small cats. And like I said, though they be but small, they are fierce. And that's typically a good rule of thumb. Typically, the smaller the cat, the bigger the attitude, or the catitude, you could say. So even these small guys, although they are very small, they look about like a house cat. You don't want to go in there. I was actually told to never go in with Jazzman because he'll jump straight for your face. Rusty, one day, I was coming over here to feed him before we had this handy dandy little food door. I had to go inside and he jumped on me from above. It's not a good day. So even though he is quite small, he's a fierce little guy. These guys are found in Sri Lanka and India. And over there in the jungles, the leaves are bigger than these cats. Everything is bigger than these cats. So if you want to survive, you've got to have the attitude to survive. So that's definitely one of those things that these guys have. These two are actually the only two in the country, so I do always try to make sure that I stop and get everybody to see them, because you will not see these cats anywhere else in the U.S. So we do have the only two here, which is very cool. And we absolutely love them. David Attenborough recently did like a BBC little special on these guys, and it went around on Facebook for a little bit. It's a little bit of a show. Typically, when we have our tour guides coming around, she will run up, she will grab onto the fence right here, and she will scream the entire time. However, this lovely lady has decided that blondes are the best. So she likes me, and I'm able to come over here. I can pet her, I can feed her, and she's very sweet with me. But with the other keepers, she will be very aggressive. They can't even feed her a piece of banana, which is their favorite, without her screaming at them. He did damage the tip of his tail, because typically, as you can see with Scout, they will end in a black tip, and his does not. So we do think that at some point in time he did damage his tail. And again, he pulls on the bars, he chatters, he's constantly moving, which is not really typical for this species. They're typically very laid back, very relaxed. But Tommy, definitely an interesting man. So Tommy was also being kept as a pet in the pet trade. And from what I understand, there's been a lot of different rumors. From what I have heard, he was being kept by this woman who, she thought he was a female, so that was a surprise. And she was keeping him kind of loose in her home. He didn't have an enclosure. He didn't have another lemur. And these are very social species, so not having that other animal to kind of learn from definitely did affect him. And then also just kind of the confusion of not knowing who she was. Is she mom? Is she my mate? Is she my friend? And so it just kind of led to a whole bunch of confusion for him. And so it has definitely had some very serious effects. And it's one of those chances where you can see that not only does keeping an animal as a pet have a physical effect, but it can definitely have a mental effect as well. So we put him in here with Scout because, again, the females are in charge, and we hope she'd kind of boss him around, tell him what to do. She hasn't seemed to do that yet. So I can't really blame her, though. I can't imagine trying to put up with him 24/7 because he is crazy. So I don't really blame her. She just kind of has to put up with his shenanigans. We had an intern this summer that really took a liking to him. She really loved him a lot. She worked with him quite a bit. And she was just trying to tell us that he has actually foreseen the future. And so he has seen the end of the world, and he's just trying to desperately tell us that the world is coming to an end. And so I think that's just a great way to think about it. He's definitely a very interesting character over here. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's just trying to warn us all. So that is Tommy, the very interesting man. He's definitely a work in progress. All right, man, I do need you to kind of step back, please. Sorry. And we are going to sweep back this way, and we're going to go and visit the rest of our cheetahs. All right, Tommy. Together. She would sleep on the dog bed, hole into the earth. And that is typically where we have a very large sulcata tortoise who lives in here with her. He's inside for colder weather right now, so he can be warmed up. But she is best friends with this tortoise, I tell you. They love each other. She will oftentimes follow the tortoise around, and even though she's this very, very fast little cat, she will follow this very slow tortoise as he walks around. They'll lay down together in the sunshine. It's really funny to see. They're just the best of friends. The very, very fast cat and the very slow tortoise. So I'm sure she's missing her friend Kenzie. So over here is where we do have our cheetah breeding facility. It is a very, very tricky job. Cheetahs are very sensitive to just about everything and very, very delicate. They also are very picky. The females like to know that they're getting the absolute best mate choice. So So getting them to accept a male can be kind of difficult to do. So over here we have all of our ladies. So we have Tuesday, of course, who is our one success from our breeding from 2 years ago. Back over there you can see one walking around. That is her mother. That is Tammy back there hanging out. And then we have another one right over here visiting up close. Nice. Usually they're hiding from us. That is Spirit. Spirit is one that we would